Hey class, Mr. G here. Today we're going to be going over composition, so part 2 on our basics of photography course. So starting off, we're going to do like a photo 101 thing, talking about composition, framing, composition, angles, rule of thirds, that whole big shebang. This thing's off. There we go. Got a little more space now. Like a composition notebook, it's for you to, no, that has nothing to do with this. For me, the basics of composition is something that's satisfying as far as the image goes. There's something intrinsically satisfying. That's the easiest way for me to describe it for myself. Now, this is my own take on composition. This is by far not the textbook definition. When I'm teaching it as an artistic understanding, I tell my students some technical stuff, which is what I'll be going over today, which is the angles of the rule of thirds. But let's be honest, as artisans ourselves, we're looking at this as an intrinsic thing. We need to go over standards real quick. Standards today are gonna be, first one that we have is the creating number 4, incorporating formal and informal components to create works of art. Specifically, we're gonna be looking at B, which is to consider and incorporate self-expression, explore how it relates to the creation of a photograph. Composition, that's the basics for that one. Next one, under creation, again, we're doing number 6, keeping an ongoing visual and verbal record to explore and developing works of art. Specifically from that one, we're looking at planning compositions and production elements. So sketchbook, you're having some forethought into your image that you're creating, making visual and verbal connections through recorded artistic research, planning, and reflection. So we've studied artworks of other artisans, and today's artist is me. So that's who we're referencing today. Finally, under responding, we're doing number 2, critique personal artworks and artworks of others individually and collaboratively using a variety of approaches. And specifically from that one, A, which is to select, analyze, and critique works of art from various photographers and photographic styles to communicate expressive content and ideas. So we're looking at this to understand why we took the picture. It's basics. The 3 styles that we're basically focusing on today is rule of thirds, angles, and golden ratio. So let's start off with the most basic one ever, which is the rule of thirds. It's the grid thing. So think of every image that you have as a grid of 9 blocks. And on those 9 blocks, if we look at the center point, the center block there, block number 5, you have 4 corners of that block. Now, what are we framing inside of that image that fits into those 4 things? So right here, we have my throat, chest area. But you get the gist. You understand that this is panel number, this is the middle panel section here. These are the side panels, top and bottom, and a level in the middle. However, when we're shooting, we don't want to see something dead on in the middle of the frame because that gets boring, that gets stagnant real quick. You always want to take it and you want to shift it over to the side, shift it up, opposite side, or down. Reason being is because that gives us more elements around it to kind of balance out what's going on in the middle. Now, if you do something dead center and you're having a straight symmetrical design, by all means, that should probably go in the center. Why? Because then it creates that symmetry that we all enjoy. It's kind of it's an intrinsic value thing. So there's a balance, a duality, something that fits on both sides, and it just is much more pleasing to look at. If you're doing something that is to create shape, dimension, space, you definitely want to bring it off to the side, get those angles in there. The reason that we're shifting it off to the side is so that you can see, specifically on buildings, and I did a really nice one when I was in Boston. This is by the Quincy Market. 3/4 viewpoint where I see from the edge of the building and it stretches outwards. That gives us more space to see how big that building is. Sometimes that building looks really big on film. It's not really. It's like the size of like a large gymnasium to me. It was big, but it wasn't like, oh, this is ginormous. No, it wasn't that big. So knowing these things as you're going through the motions, as you're going through creating these images, what are you trying to really accentuate? Are you trying to accentuate the shapes? How much space these things take up? Do you want to do something that's based upon symmetry, the duality of objects on left side and right side? How are you doing something to incorporate a personality? How are you doing something that incorporates the elements of art, which is line, shape, form, texture, space, color, value? Yeah, that's all of them. Or is it one of the principles where we're focusing on balance, emphasis, proportion, movement, unity, harmony? This is bad because I got a test on this tomorrow. Emphasis, movement, pattern, balance, repetition, proportion, rhythm, variety, and unity. Variety. Why did I forget variety? How using that to aid in the photographs that we're going to be taking. So let's start diving into some of my photographs and breaking these down by the elements and the principle, and also how the shot was done in either the golden rectangle, golden ratio in some cases, rule of thirds, and angles. Sometimes pictures can be taken in the most odd places and it comes out really well. For this shot, I had we were in line getting food at a food court with it was another college store. We go on a lot of college stores, and the two students were off to the side. I don't know if they were our students or if they were part of the college campus that we were hanging out at, but one of my other teacher friends, he was standing right in front of me. I told him, like, don't move. So I'm gonna get the edge of him to where the lens has that weird, like, if you put your hand up and you can kind of see through your hand kind of thing, you hold it like this and you can see around it because of the way light bends. The lens had the same effect, so I could shoot just past his shoulder to get these two that became much more of an intimate setting of the two of them having a conversation, because I have this frame of you're looking past something to see what is going on, when all they were doing is just kind of standing there, like, talking about what class they just came out of. But it looks a lot more interesting. There's something else going on because of the way that it was framed. Now, this guy here in the foreground, he was a student of ours he was one of those ones who cut up, kind of the class clown, but he's a good-natured kid. I loved using him as a model because he got really into it. I was like, dude, I need you to, like, walk this like 2 more times. He's like, I'm on it. I will. Rico Suave. Went there and was game for doing the shot. So I had him walking across a couple times. I didn't notice this until I got into the edit of one of our other students looking back, and I don't think he was looking at him, but the way that it lines up, it was like dead perfect. I don't know if it was a luck of the shot or whatnot, but this here is an angle that it's a happy accident. That's all it was. But the angle works really well because you have something in the background making a connection to something in the foreground. So there's something that automatically ties your eye to where you look at it, and you look at the one character here, and then it traces down to, because of the red, which is a brighter component than the blue jacket that he's wearing, that you bounce off of those characters, and you're connected by the eyes. It's a humanistic thing. I'm always telling that to my students. Find the human element. It will tie all your photos together, and it will always create a balanced body of work because you're tying that human element in there. In addition to this, we also have golden ratio, where we start at the top, check down to, you see the phone's poking out of his pocket, to the box, to the other guy in the back to the drink, which brings us back to the main character. All these things work in a circle, work in a spiral that brings you back to the main event. Big thing between the last picture and this picture, we're looking at a tonal change. Now, you can do this in your photo editing software. I did this in camera. The first one, I use the Kelvin scale a lot, which is under your white balance. Under your white balance, you have auto white balance, and then you have all the different ones. You have like tungsten, cloudy, and daylight, and indoor. You have all those little settings. If you have one out far at the end, it says K. That's Kelvin. Kelvin deals with the Kelvin light scale. 3000 range is a lot of blues. Your 6000 range is a lot of yellows, and it kind of goes from that blue to red to yellow bleed over effect. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to have this really reddish color. That's more of the neutral tone, what most things look like in the middle. That your common daylight that you normally see just with our eyes is right around between 4700 to about 5200 on the Kelvin meter. I usually shoot for 5000 to 5500 when I want to do the happier shots. I shoot in the lower 4000s, right around 4000 if I want to get more moody blues in there. This one I pumped up all the way to, I think it was a 6000 range. So I have these nice yellow elements that are kind of going around there. There was yellow chairs, yellow walls. So then when I went into the editing software, I just kind of kicked it down a little bit, bring back that saturation. So it gives it a lot more neutral yellow instead of this bright like gold. I didn't want to have that. So bring it back, and you have, again, our main character here going through a second pass, but there's that hopefulness in his eyes that he's looking forward to the future. Again, we have that perfect side of the thirds balance where you have them just on that third line, and the line that carries over from the table and chairs carries us through the rest of the photo. So you have that nice one element on one side that's larger that balances out with the other side really, really nicely. Nice dark element here, light element over here, and as it moves over across the image, that's what carries your eye across. Fireworks photos for me, I've only done this a few times, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, special celebrations and whatnot. I'll have my camera out. These are really a luck of the draw as far as composition goes. You really want to, when I'm shooting this, it's because it's a night shot, I have a tripod with me. I also have an intervalometer, which is it's one of these. This thingy, you hook it up to your camera, and what it does, it times shots for you. Now, some cameras have this built into the settings and the menus, and this is really, it's a luck of a draw shot. And once you get it into your editing software, and you can then kind of play with the colors more, play with the exposure a little bit, that's really where you can build your composition. Now, me, when I'm doing fireworks shots, I want to see a nice like bloom. So think of it as like a set of flowers, and I want to see small structure at the bottom, wide structure in the middle, and a little bit at the top as well. So it's kind of like in a diamond pattern, so that you have an overall, you have movement, you have color, you have variety in the way that all those little pieces in the firework are exploding. You have some bits that are just starting to explode, some that are fizzling out completely. There's a little bit of smoke and whatnot, and just bring those color aspects together and seeing what you got. Each one of those pictures is a surprise. Each one of those pictures is a small present for me to open and figure out what I'm going to do with it. I like that aspect of when I'm doing these shots. They're very cumbersome, and there's nothing you can do as a photographer to know that you got that shot dead on right when you took it. You really just have to look at what you got when you get back to the studio and you're going through these photos. When I'm taking pictures of inanimate objects, I really like to see, one, what is the whole object, and then fine tune. First one here, we're looking at the engine block. You have the exhaust, the manifold at the top there. You have this beautiful motor that's this nice cherry red. Next to it, you have these cylinders, that stainless steel, this black kind of engine grease around it. Now, all these pieces were really pristinely cleaned, and so there's very minimal grease, but you do have that nice juxtaposition of the shiny object to this really dull object, and there's this dynamic between the two. But seeing the writing on the side of that block, that's what I thought was interesting, and wanted to emphasize the writing. And you have these cables around it that kind of that give a organic flow to the image, because you have all these straight lines and then the hex screws that are holding the block together. That creates that dynamic illustration. That's what I want to see when I'm looking at those kinds of images. In Atlanta, we have Dragon Con, which is basically, it's Comic-Con, but just for fans. So you have some celebrities, and no one's really there to pump stuff. It's really just fans to come out and love the characters, love the art. If they see you have a camera and you're taking shots of them, they will play up to the camera, and that makes it a lot of fun. So this one is a shot of one of the Netherworld characters. Made perfect eye contact, and I got the shot off real quick, and as soon as I get the shot and I know that I've got it, I'll give them a thumbs up so they can keep on moving. This one was just, again, it's one of those shots where you're looking at it in the wide angle version, and it's nice, but when you zoom in to get the face, and you have that nice, the eyes bouncing off of the gloves with the red and blood in the hair and all, it's good stuff. I love the colors on this. I love how they pop. There's that warmth with the color aspects. You have these warm colors in there, but it's a very dark character that you're focusing on. I love that craziness. All right, so I'm going to pause and say that this is going to be part 1. Next week will be part 2. Breaking it up just because it's just too long to me. So two movies, so stay tuned. All right, so that's where we're going to end on composition today. I'm working on more stuff all the time, so stay tuned as more is coming out. But let's go ahead and take care of our homework real quick. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share on all the various platforms. We want to get our message out there, teach as many people as we possibly can. If you have a question, comment, or concern, don't forget to raise your hand down in the comments below. Happy to answer those questions from my classmates. And as always, I will see you guys next class. Later, guys. You know, sometimes you just take too many photos and you're like, that was a cool shot of like a sidewalk. Here's the little behind the scenes action. This shirt was from yesterday because I couldn't finish the video. I'm gonna change in today's shirt. Yeah, Pacific Rim. So I like Guillermo del Toro. I think fantastic director.